Hi, my name is Dan Burnett. I'm the Executive Director of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. I'm very excited to welcome you today to our Ethereum 7th anniversary special. We have a full event planned for you today with three main sessions. The first will be focusing on Ethereum in business and commerce. The second one will be a conversation about Ethereum's history and heroes. And the third will be a conversation on why Ethereum is special. To kick us off today, we're very honored to have Don Tapscott. His list of accomplishments is so long that we could spend 15 minutes just on that alone. But I think I'll just hit a few highlights here. Don Tapscott is one of the world's leading authorities on the impact of technology on business and society. He has authored 18 books that have been translated into over 25 languages. In 2016, with his son Alex, he co-authored the global bestseller, Blockchain Revolution, How the Technology Behind Bitcoin and Other Cryptocurrencies is Changing the World. In 2017, Don and Alex co-founded the Blockchain Research Institute, which has recently expanded globally with five partner offices. Don is a member of the Order of Canada, and in 2019 ranked as the second most influential management thinker by Thinkers 50. It's been said that Don is the most prolific, profound, and influential thinker and speaker in today's world on explaining today's technological revolutions and their impact on the world. Without further ado, Don Tapscott.
Well, thanks so much, Dan, for that too kind introduction. I'm delighted to be here, and I really mean it. I was there when the Genesis block of Ethereum got created. I was with Joe Lubin and a bunch of guys in New Jersey, and it was an apocryphal day. There was a massive thunderstorm. The whole building was shaking. Lightning was flashing, and all of a sudden the Genesis block gets created, and it was like a biblical kind of moment. And let me just give you a little background on the topic here today. I wrote a couple of books in the 1980s that nobody read. My mother bought most of the copies. But I started writing some bestsellers in the early 90s. Paradigm Shifts, obviously a big book. And the Digital Economy was the first big bestseller about the web. And I got lucky with the timing and with the co-author of the book Blockchain Revolution. And one of the reasons I got lucky was because of Ethereum, that Ethereum was really coming alive during the period of writing the book. And Vitalik and Joe and others in the Ethereum community are the most interviewed people in the book. And that's what I think was part of what made it a success, is it wasn't a book about Bitcoin. It was a book about blockchain. And what I'd like to do is flash forward almost 7 years and talk about what we said and then what's actually happened in the world since then. I'll just get my remote to work. Okay, so but here's what we said in the book, that for 40 years we've had the internet, and it's an internet of information. But if I send some information, a PDF, email, whatever, I'm sending a copy, and that doesn't work for assets, things of value, money, securities, intellectual property, the data in our identities, music, arts, cultural assets, votes. A vote's an asset, something of value that belongs to somebody. You don't want someone copying your vote or your identity. And if I send you $1,000, it's really important that I don't still have the money. So the way we manage this problem, it's called, by cryptographers called it the double spend problem, in our economy and in business, is through middlemen. And banks, stock exchanges, credit card companies, social media companies perform all of the business and transaction logic for every type of commerce. They identify the party, they clear and settle transactions, they keep records, and they're increasingly having problems They're being hacked. They slow things down. They take too much value in the middle. They capture our data, which is a big issue. So what we said is, what if there were not just an internet of information? What if there were an internet of value? Some kind of vast global distributed ledger where anything of value from money to securities to votes could be managed, stored, transacted in a secure and private way. That's what blockchain is to us. It's the second era of the internet. Now, over the years, we've developed some good analogies, I thought, about one of the benefits of these platforms is that they are more secure than traditional computing environments. And John Oliver had some fun with one of my analogies. So it's an analogy that I don't use anymore. You'll see why when I play this video.
Because of the complicated process the network uses to verify records, it is very secure. Now, relax. I'm not going to get into what that process is or how it works, but I will share a really helpful, really dumb metaphor for why it is safe.
The way I like to think of it is that a blockchain is a highly processed thing, sort of like a chicken McNugget. And if you wanted to hack it, it'd be like turning a chicken McNugget back into a chicken. Now, someday someone will be able to do that, but for now, it's going to be tough.
Hold on. That is an absolutely horrible thought. So why is that reporter so happy about the idea? Because if anyone ever figures out how to turn a chicken McNugget back into a chicken, that chicken is going to be up. He's going to spend the rest of his life suffering from PTSD and writing haunting poetry about the experience. The things I saw, buck, buckaw. My body is whole, but what of my soul?
So you can see why I don't use the analogy anymore. The way I think of Ethereum is that Bitcoin was really the first app of the Internet of Value. The first app of the Internet of Information was email. Then we saw the rise of the web, where you could build any app. And that's what Ethereum is. It's analogous to the web, a general purpose platform for building any app to create value. And of course, it introduced the concept of smart contracts, which is critical to everything. Now, how does all this relate to the language around Web3? To me, well, let me explain. The first era of the web, I've been through all of this, was the read web. You looked at websites. The second era was a read-write web, where you could go on and contribute. You could add to Wikipedia, you could participate in a social network, and so on. And what we have now is what we could call the read, write, own web that deals with things of value, that you participate in this world, but you get to have ownership over value. And that is a very, very profound thing, as we'll see in a minute. So that's kind of how we laid the whole thing out. What's happened since then? Well, I'd like to kind of use a new model first time today to talk about this. 5 levels of transformation. Big changes to us as individuals through this technology, changes to the firm, changes to, more broadly, entire supply chains, transformations at the level of entire industries, and I think that we're in the early days of some big changes to our civilization. So in the next 20 minutes, let me roar through that, less than 20 minutes. First of all, the level of the individual. Houston, we have a problem. It has to do with data. Data is the asset class of the digital age. But like under the feudal system where you grew produce, value, and the landlord took it most away, we all create this asset, but it gets expropriated through digital conglomerates. And that means that we can't use the data to plan our lives. We can't monetize the data. There are probably 1.5 billion people that could double their income if they could monetize their data. It means the data is not secure, and our privacy is being undermined. And people say to me, well, Don, privacy is the foundation of freedom. Get over it. This is stupidity. Privacy, that privacy is not the foundation of freedom. That we need to protect our identities. We need to get our digital identities back so that we can manage this data responsibly for ourselves. There are 6 companies that own half of NASDAQ. The problem with some of these companies is not that they're monopolies, it's they're increasingly owning the assets of the digital age. So the new model is a self-sovereign citizen identity. And this is a very exciting idea that we spend a lot of time on, that we can, through blockchain technology and smart contracts and other related capabilities, we can sweep up all this transactional data from the thousands of types of information that we create during the day into our own identities that we can manage for ourselves. Now, the second big level of change has to do with the firm. I think that we're in the early days of some very profound changes to the firm. And I'll go back to someone, I started writing about this guy in '94 in the digital economy, but he features big in Blockchain Revolution. His name is Ronald Coase, a Nobel Prize winning economist. And 80 years ago, he asked a deceptively simple question. He said, why does the firm exist if Adam Smith is right and the open market's the best mechanism for allocating goods and resources and so on? Why isn't everybody an independent contractor at every step along the way in production? Why do we have firms? And he said the answer is, and he won a Nobel Prize for saying this, transaction costs. The cost of search, of finding all the right people or money or information or whatever to do something in an open market is greater than the cost of doing things inside the boundaries of the corporation. The cost of coordination, getting people to work together. If every activity required a contract, that would be totally prohibitive. So the industrial age corporation was vertically integrated. It was hierarchical. Along came the early days of IT, and the boundaries of corporations became more porous. Then with the internet, these transaction costs dropped further, and we started to see more networked business models. We called them business webs or ecosystems back a couple of decades ago. Now with blockchain, we're moving to a very different world where the deep structure and architecture of the corporation is beginning to change. And this is really a very big deal. This is the way that we orchestrate capability in society to innovate, to create goods and services is changing. Among other things, talent was always inside our boundaries. Now talent can be outside as well. So in the book, we talked about new business models, and we wondered, could you have a very complex organization that was highly automated and ultimately that had no people? And we hypothesized, we call it the decentralized autonomous enterprise. And we wrote up how it would work and so on. Well, shortly after the book came out, it was coincidentally, the DAO was created. And that was really the beginning of some very, very big changes. And most of these are based on Ethereum. MakerDAO is a decentralized governance community that enables the generation of DAI. It's the world's leading decentralized DAO, the world's leading decentralized stable coin. You've got the Moloch DAO, is a decentralized organization deployed on the Ethereum mainnet, and members contribute capital with the sole intention of giving it away to fund Ethereum infrastructure and essential public good projects. Many other examples. I'll have to move along here. So thirdly, it's not just a corporation that's changing now and its architecture. We're seeing big changes to our supply chains. I mean, how can it be in 2022 that we can't get baby formula to babies in the United States? The president of the United States saying one of the biggest problems facing America is supply chain failure. Well, when you think about it, we have traditional supply chains of all these different partners and planes and boats and trains and trucks and pipelines, and they're all these different participants. You got escrow agents and various counterparties and banks, and there are borders and tax authorities and traditional EDI and ERP systems. Imagine if all of this were a shared network state where you have a single version of the truth, where you have real-time transactions, where there's no delay between the clearing and a settlement, a payment and a settlement, because they're the same activity. They're just a change to the platform, to the ledger. So again, most of the exciting stuff happening in supply chains is on Ethereum right now. And we've got great examples. Trium is building a next generation decentralized supply chain system that helps bring all these different parties together. CargoX is a blockchain-based bill of lading and document transfer provider on Ethereum. Morpheus is a big deal, and that's basically a supply chain automation platform that implements a hybrid of private chains with notarized data, and that's based on the Ethereum mainnet as well. The next level is at the level of entire industries. And I could pick almost any industry here, but let's just start with financial services because it's one of 14 that we're studying. But this is the financial services industry. It's called a Rube Goldberg machine, a super complicated machine that does something really simple like cracking an egg or opening a door. The industry actually only does 9 things. It stores value, bucks, whatever. Because it moves value, it gets the lend value. It funds and invests value. You've got, venture capital, private equity, mutual funds, hedge funds, and so on. It exchanges value, creates markets like stock markets. It insures value, manages risk. It analyzes value. There's a whole industry that does that. It accounts for and audits value, and it authenticates identity. You are who you are. That is a dollar, and so on. Everything that is on this list can be done by software. And part of what's happening is that all assets are being tokenized. Let's not talk about cryptocurrencies. There are many different types of assets. This is the taxonomy that we've developed. But, sure, you've got cryptocurrencies, but protocol tokens. Ether is not a currency. It's a protocol token. There are governance tokens that are used in DAOs and other decentralized organizations to achieve a new model of governance. Exchange tokens are native to centralized exchanges, but can also be used in decentralized. You have natural asset tokens, like you can tokenize a carbon credit, a synthetic asset, or even a real asset. And every time I hear the word DeFi, I'm kind of irritated. Because DeFi is like a new coat of paint on the wall of the bank. Alex calls it digital wallpaper. DeFi is really software doing all of this in a way that could be much, much better. Now, it doesn't mean that all banks will be disintermediated, but because they're working hard to re-intermediate to create new value. But DeFi continues to explode today. So I'm just trying to advance this slide here. There we go. So another sort of industry transformation, if you like, is energy and climate. And, Houston, we have a problem here. We need to solve this problem of climate change. We need to reduce carbon by 90%. We got 20 years to do it. And even if we do that, it'll take 1,000 years for the planet to cool down. And we're already seeing terrible things happening around the world. 1.5 billion people are losing most of their water supply right now as we speak. So the oil and gas industry is using blockchain extensively throughout the industry on a bunch of use cases. But the more important thing is we need to reindustrialize planet Earth and move towards a green energy grid. And a lot of the really exciting things that are happening there are happening around blockchain, around Ethereum too. So Wien Energy it's the largest regional energy provider in Austria, and implemented a blockchain-based energy solution called My Power that enables micro investments in solar and so on. Energy Web builds operating system for energy grids to power a zero carbon economy. This is a company that I co-founded called CarbonX. We're tokenizing carbon credits. This is going to create open liquid markets for carbon and will be very critical in doing what needs to be done is mobilizing the entire planet, not just every company, but every government, every school, every kid in every schoolyard through economic incentives to bring about change. And again, Ethereum is kind of leading the way in with carbon offset tokens. Construction is another industry. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to have to skip ahead. But it's a fascinating industry that we spend a lot of time looking at. The whole industry is really very ripe for a big change to the entire business model with real-time transactions and smart payments and all kinds of other big benefits. The final one that I wanted to mention is that we're starting to see big changes more beyond just an industry to civilization itself. And, you know, this began in Blockchain Revolution. We wrote a chapter about culture, and we talked about music and art. And music, it hasn't quite played out the way we thought. We talked about, you know, that you would post your song on a blockchain platform inside a smart contract, and the contract would specify the intellectual property rights of the song. You want to listen to the song, maybe it's free. You want to put the song in your movie, the contract would say to the movie producer, what do you want to do? Background music, theme music, you know, somebody's going to sing it. And the song has a bank in it, you know, in protecting the intellectual rights of the author. It's sort of like Imogen Heap said that my song will act as a business. It didn't really play out that way, but there are really interesting things happening in music. That will happen ultimately. But NFTs are a big one. Here's Global Rockstars, uses Ethereum and Polygon to build out a whole platform where you can invest in a song that you love. And if the song takes off, you're a participant in that. In the book, we had a whole chapter on NFTs. This is like 7 years ago. We called them crypto collectibles. Who would figure the word non-fungible token would be more attractive than the word crypto collectible? But anyway, again, Ethereum is dominating all this. And the final one I want to mention is about one of the big institutions of civilization is government. And we can use a technology. I just came back from Dubai, where they've now got a third of all government applications that are running on a blockchain platform. If you could advance the slide for me, that'd be great. So this is about the business of government, the operations of government. But then we have a broader issue, which is the issue of governance itself. And we have a crisis of legitimacy, of democracy all around the world. I mean, a third of people in the United States would rather see their guy in power than have a democracy. And, you know, they believe that the election was fake. It's probably the most scrutinized election, and not just in America, but anywhere in the world. So, legitimacy is the idea that you may disagree with who's in power, but at least you think the system is a good system. Increasingly, people are questioning that. What do we got? We can have religious governments. We can have, I don't know, what should we have? Bolshevism? Should we have anarchy? Maybe we should have libertarian governments. So democracy is kind of the best one I've seen, and we have a lot of work to do to defend it. So we need to move to a second era. And again, the technology is becoming critical in doing this. A second era that's characterized by active, if not passive, active citizenship, a culture of public deliberation, transparency. And how about this for a radical idea? Elected representatives that are accountable to citizens, not to the big funders that put them into power. So again, there's a lot of work going on in this. I don't have time to talk about it, but just give you one example. experimentation underway using Ethereum to create a smart vote. So you're not just voting for the person, you're voting for their program as well. And if they don't implement the program, there are consequences. Maybe they get censured or not paid, or maybe funds don't flow. Ultimately, maybe they lose their seat. They become impeached as an individual. So you can have smart money, send your kid off to school. Yobi uses the money for books and tuition and not in the bar. Well, with smart money, he goes into the bar, orders a margarita, and the money says, sorry, Johnny, I don't do margaritas. I only do books and tuition. So the notion of smart contracts built into big transformations for civilization is a huge one. So that every one of those 5 is like a 1-hour talk, and I gave them a couple of minutes each. But this is a big change that's underway, and Ethereum is at the heart of the whole thing. What's the problem? How do we move forward? Well, we have lots of issues in our industry, for sure. But overall, when you get a new paradigm, leaders of the old fight against change. I'm old enough to remember Ken Olsen, CEO of Digital Equipment Corporation, the largest computer company in the world at the time, 1977, say that there's no reason why anyone would want to have a computer in their home. So this is the biggest challenge to me. It's one of leadership. How do we find the leadership to go forward? And if you could advance the slide, please. That this happens. A paradigm is a mental model, paradigms with boundaries around what we think they constrain our actions. We have a new internet of value now, a new web. And this naturally causes dislocation, conflict, uncertainty, a vested interest fight against change. And that's why you watching this session today and celebrating the 7th year of Ethereum are so important for a very profound transformation, because leadership is not going to come from the head of state or even the CEOs of most companies. It's going to come from you. I hope you'll come to blockchainresearchinstitute.org. A lot of stuff there is free now, and we're trying to bridge the gap between potential and actual deployment. And I invite you all to Toronto for our big event on blockchain in the enterprise, November 8th and 9th. It's called W3B, Web3 and Blockchain World. And this is the most important thing I want you to remember. Take a screenshot of this, if you would. The Enterprise Web3 and Blockchain Transformation Awards the ceremony will be held in November. And the deadline is in a couple of weeks to get submissions in. Ethereum has generally dominated these in the past. We want to make sure that all the good new applications for Ethereum are there. So, can we do this? What's the next 7 years look like? I'm kind of the school that the future is not something to be predicted. It's something to be achieved. And we can achieve a very exciting future, but only if we will it. Let me end with an analogy about the decentralized world, if I could. If you could start up that video. We've been studying, and you'll have to turn the volume, thanks. We've been studying nature at the Institute, and fish come in schools, bees come in swarms. Starlings over the moors of England come in something called a murmuration. It's a word in the English dictionary. It stands for the murmuring of the wings of the birds. And starlings are out over a 20-mile radius throughout the day doing their starling thing. At night, they come together. They create one of the most spectacular things in all of nature. And the murmuration has a function. It's not just for show. It keeps the birds warm for the cold night ahead. It also protects the birds from predators. In some of these videos, you can see a hawk, a fierce killer, a predator, on the right of the screen here, being chased away by the collective power of the little birds. And scientists that have studied this say they've never seen an accident. there's leadership, but there's no one leader. And when the moment is right, this magic happens. So is this some kind of fanciful analogy, or can we learn something for this 7th year of celebration? The murmuration functions under the design principles of Ethereum. There's a great interdependence. You know, if I'm speaking to a CEO audience, I'll say business can't succeed in a world that's failing. And each bird functions as if its interests are in the interests of the murmuration of the whole. The murmuration, there's no middleman. Trust is not achieved by a middleman. It's achieved by, well, in the case of Ethereum, by cryptography and clever code, but there's DNA, if you like, in the birds that gives it some rules. Don't bump into anybody else. Don't get too far away, for example. And the murmuration has to close what I would call a great integrity. And integrity is really the foundation of trust. Because I wrote a book about this. It took me 3 months to write this sentence. Trust is the expectation that the other party will act with integrity. Trust is the expectation that the other party will do the right thing, which is why a little bird will chase a killer 25 times its size, because it knows that the other birds will do the right thing, that they will have its back. So I look at this and, I get a lot of hope that maybe if we connect ourselves in this planet through a vast network of glass and air and cryptography and code, that maybe this more decentralized world that my grandchildren inherit might actually be a better one. And that this age of networked intelligence, after all this time, might finally be an age where the promise of digital is fulfilled and the peril is unrequited. So congratulations. Let's make the next 7 years exponentially a bigger deal. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Don. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Our next session is going to be on Ethereum's history and heroes, but first we have a few brief messages from members of our community.
Hi there, everybody. This is John Whelan. I am the chairman of the board of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And in my day job, I'm the managing director of the Digital Assets Program at Banco Santander in Madrid. And what an exciting day it is. It is the 7th birthday of Ethereum, which was born on July 30th, 2015. And here we are 7 years later. And what an exciting 7 years it has been. We've seen the development of programmable blockchain, smart contracts, decentralized finance, DeFi, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and all kinds of other incredible things. And in just a couple of months, we're looking forward to the merge, which will take Ethereum from proof of work to the long-planned proof of stake. So once again, happy birthday to Ethereum, and of course to the Ethereum community. Hopefully see you all soon. Bye now.
Hi, I got started Ethereum from AI and robotics. AI industry is now focusing on AI accuracy and the capability. Of course, it's top priority. At the same time, I think it is important to create reliable AI. Reliable means explainable and traceable. That's why we need a blockchain. Ethereum is the largest general purpose blockchain, and also AI aims to be a general purpose. So they are complementary. I want to create a trusted open AI network, and I believe that Ethereum can contribute a big part of it. Thank you.
The people in the community I'm grateful to know and work with. Well, I think I am thankful to many people of community to have known or have worked with. I'd like to make mention of Hudson Jameson, Tim Bako, Mike Azolto, Matt Gannett, Mikhail Kalanen, Danny Ryan, and all the client team members. And of course, the legendary Vitalik Buterin, who made multiple appearances on Peep and Eep, a popular educational video series by Ethereum cat herders that helped get the series the deserved attention by the community. So thank you, Ethereum community, for having us. Happy memory. I suppose I have been enjoying my eventful journey with the Ethereum community. I can talk about one during the time of the consideration for EIP 1559. EIP 1559 is one of the most controversial EIPs. I remember at the time people were having divided opinions for introducing the proposal on the Ethereum network. We, the cat herders, organized an open community meeting inviting all parties that included curious miners, knowledgeable researchers, and a few agnostic infrastructure support providers. I consider that community call to be one of the most important event that helped us decide to come to a rough consensus. And this is one of the many stories of the best governance model available in the decentralized ecosystem.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Perry, and I'm VP of Solutions Engineering at Scale Labs. I got involved in Ethereum in 2017. I took an aggressive approach, though. I quit my job in Web 2, and then I immediately took a Consensus Academy course in order to learn about the blockchain concepts within Ethereum. While taking that course, though, I learned about two friction points, one being around high gas costs, and two being around slow transaction speeds. And that set me on my path to land at Scale Labs because Scale Labs was looking to solve both of those problems, and I wanted to help solve those problems too. While at Scale Labs, I often get asked, how do we reach wider adoption? How do we get to 1 billion users within the space? And I think that by focusing more on the user experience and solving for a lot of those problems within the space that currently exists means that we'll automatically entice more users to want to join and use the products that are being built.
Hi, my name is Ken Fromm. I'm EEA Director of Education and Development, and it's my pleasure to bring on a couple folks to talk about Ethereum history and heroes, and also dive into a little bit about NFT history. So I want to welcome Grant Hummer, who is a early Ethereum community developer, as well as an investor, and then also Adam McBride, who is an NFT archaeologist. So come on screen, and Grant, do you want to add, embellish any of your bio there?
Hi, no, that bio is great. I've been involved in Ethereum pretty much since 2015, and it's been a wild ride. So glad to be here.
Fantastic. Adam, just a quick summary of what a NFT archaeologist is.
Well, it used to mean that I would dig for old projects and try to relaunch. These projects were kind of the birth of the modern day NFT. It's morphed a lot more into just kind of NFT historian now, as pretty much all the products have been kind of uncovered over the last 18 months.
Awesome. Well, we'll get to you in a bit. First of all, I think we want to talk about Ethereum milestones and heroes. We'll get to NFTs in a short, all of your stories in a short time. But Grant, so we have one of your quotes is that Ethereum is becoming a settlement layer for the global financial system in all high-value, trustless computing. So can you unpack that? What do you mean by this, and where are we going with that vision?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Don did a good job alluding to a lot of this, but if we zoom out for a second, I think many people would agree the world is becoming a less unified, more authoritarian, and less trusting place in both the physical and digital realms. And this runs the whole gamut, from social media and bank accounts, censorship and deplatforming, global military conflict, fraying international alliances, political polarization, deteriorating state capacity, and so forth. The long-term fate of the dollar looks especially vulnerable to me in this environment. And there are some nascent signs that the petrodollar system could break one day, and with it, the dollar's hegemonic reserve currency status. So tying it back, what role does Ethereum play in this environment? The way I see it, I think Ethereum is perfectly positioned to disintermediate many of these institutions, like a centralized social media or centralized financial system that people and countries are increasingly looking to opt out of. What if it were impossible for a social network to ban you for your political opinions? And what if the global economy didn't need to use the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday banking system to send money around the world? What if all equity and bond trades settled instantly on Ethereum instead of taking over 48 hours, a T+2 as they call it? And, what if the collateral positions of financial institutions were visible on chain in a way that made assessing systemic risk really easy? We just saw a microcosm of this dichotomy play out in crypto with the performance of centralized versus decentralized lenders. So I think Ethereum is poised to do all of this and a lot more. The number of use cases, I mean, it could fill, a whole week of speeches, right? So yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So yeah. I think let's talk about maybe some of the history, seven years. So if you can maybe describe some of the different eras that we went through from 2015, ICOs, et cetera. How do you see when we look back at, where we've been, what some of the milestones have been since you've been around for a while?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are basically three or four periods in Ethereum. First was 2015 to 2017, which was the initial flowering, I would call it. Vitalik even had a phrase back then, which was "let 1,000 tokens bloom." And unfortunately, most of these early coins were probably more fertilizer than flower, but it's pretty self-evident. But yeah, I mean that's really when Ethereum had its first huge run up with the ICO boom and subsequent crash. And so from 2018 to 2021, which I would characterize as another phase, we had the bear market, ICO hangover, but then subsequent real discovery of product market fit with DeFi and NFTs. And that bear market was brutal. I mean, Ethereum's price dropped 95%. The broader tech and finance community and Twitter, panned it and shunned it as a scammy platform for unregistered securities sales. But what I really consider the true barometer of success, which is developer activity and adoption, that barely dipped. And developers just relentlessly built and built and built. And that catalyzed the bull market, which we just lived through, of 2020 and 2021. Many of the platforms founded in 2017, like Curve, Aave, Synthetics, OpenSea, and many others, all came into their own in that bull market. We also saw the initial deployment of rollup chains, which are bringing scale to Ethereum while inheriting its massive economic security and user base. One other thing I would say is I would characterize many of those years, maybe from 2016 to 2019, as kind of a wandering in the desert phase with respect to Ethereum's research and development, specifically in the areas of scalability, sharding, and proof of stake research. I don't think people really appreciate just how much effort has gone into this. I mean, cognitive effort, research effort. Vitalik and the research team have thought about these problems really since Ethereum's inception and have cycled through countless iterations of protocol designs, sometimes throwing out months or even years of effort when the research direction was found to have fundamental flaws. Plasma is a good example of this. Plasma chains have this kind of proto rollup architecture, except with one glaring flaw, that you couldn't run generalized EVM smart contracts on them. Only token transfers and a few other limited use cases were possible. And obviously this is insufficient for Ethereum's mission, so the Plasma approach was abandoned. And it wasn't until around 2019 that Ethereum really found its footing, research and development wise, and crystallize its roadmap around sharding and rollups. So, yeah, and I think the future will see even more milestones like that as Ethereum hits web scale.
Yeah, I think we also saw the rise of the protocol. So
Mhm.
so especially the decentralized protocol, and
Oh,
really understanding it's not just a smart contract. Essentially, it's a protocol, and the tethering of the federation and the tethering of these protocols together has really been a lot of experimentation. But now it's certainly now with a total value locked in the multi-billions of these working protocols, it really has gotten people's attention and said, yes, this is real. Let me shift to you, Adam. Do you have any views of the context at the top level view of Ethereum, milestones and periods?
Well, I think Grant's, totally right from a developer perspective, 100%. But I look at it from the outside, from the people perspective. And I look at the boom of NFTs over the last year, and I just say, wow, this is really Ethereum's first touch to real people in the real world, the normies, I guess we'd call them. And for me, that's the beauty of Ethereum. It gives you this kind of base layer to build on, and I don't think anybody on earth knows what that next big thing to really touch individuals is going to be. But this is what I love most about Ethereum and about blockchain in general, is just this ability for people to build things, build 1,000 things, 1,000 flowers that'll bloom, and most of them turn to manure, right? NFTs for literally a decade were being built and nobody cared. But in 2021, they cared. And we saw that one of the first great use cases of blockchain technology. And I think that's just super exciting.
Fantastic. So let's we'll hold off. You got some plenty of great stories I want to get to shortly, but let me go back to Grant and let's talk about some of the heroes that you look on, whether it's the Ethereum core folks or any protocol builders. So talk us through some, whether it's sung heroes or unsung heroes that come to mind.
Yeah, I think in every launched blockchain, there's this sort of tragedy of the commons problem, where once the token emission event has occurred, and people have experienced those venture 10, 100x plus returns, incentives start to shift with developers. So I really like to champion the core developers and the core researchers, people building the clients and architecting, the next generation of Ethereum. So people at the Ethereum Foundation, like Justin Drake, who's one of the lead researchers, Danny Ryan, who plays a crucial role coordinating client teams, guys like Dankrad Feist. He created this thing called Dank sharding, which Ethereum is going to be using for its sharding roadmap. All the proof of stake client teams, especially Lighthouse, I think they are far and away the most. I mean, every team is amazing, but they take it to the next level in terms of technical prowess and legitimacy. So yeah, those are just a few people. Peter Zislocki, who maintains Geth, is the lead developer, is another guy I'd really highlight.
Yeah, I think Tim Baiko was mentioned. Pooja had talked about a few people she called out, Hudson Jamison.
Yeah,
even like Pooja herself, in terms of ETH, cat herders, and just community development. So yeah, there are a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't hear about, but that have been instrumental in building out Ethereum and the Ethereum community. Okay, so let's get into NFTs. So Adam, talk us about how you got involved in NFT history and some of the ones you've uncovered. Talk to us about the auction, I believe it was at Sotheby's, and some of both the stories, like how you uncovered it, and then what happened to the people that you brought forward from into modern NFT dynamism.
Yeah, well, I think to Grant's point about people who kind of move the entire space forward, it wouldn't be appropriate to talk about these people without talking about Matt and John from CryptoPunks, and just how important that's been to the entire NFT space, NFT history. A lot of people think it starts with CryptoPunks. Obviously, it started many, many years before that. Just Grant even mentioning Dank something, right? You couldn't talk about NFTs without talking about rare Pepes, which originally were on Bitcoin, right? And so this history, I think, is important to talk about, just to understand where we came from. And along those lines, talking about, the impact of CryptoKitties. and how important that was for NFTs. And I would propose really Ethereum in general, because, half of the projects I've worked with to kind of relaunch, CryptoKitties for them as developers were this important milestone where they thought to themselves, oh, wow, I might actually be able to make money if I build something on Ethereum. And I think that was really important and should be highlighted. For me, it was really kind of the end of 2020 when I saw kind of crypto punks come back into the news again. And I just thought, wow, I need to get into this. And in March of last year, there was a rediscovery of like 4 old NFT projects in 1 week. And that completely blew my mind that these people were building back in 2015, 16, and 17, building projects on Ethereum and were completely unknown. And so I spent the better part of 6 months, 10 hours a day trying to find these old projects. I guess the highlight for me was finding this one called Pixel Map, which is a 2016 project. There just weren't really many projects built in 2016. And finding that one myself and working with the developer Ken Irwin to kind of relaunch that project has been fantastic, just to kind of bring back these projects that were, lost to time. And now we can kind of hold up and say, look, this was a 2016 project where he didn't even know what he was building. He didn't even call them NFTs right back then. He didn't even know what it was, right? And to kind of rebirth these projects that guys were building just for the fun of it, just to learn Solidity, has been absolutely thrilling for me.
Well, talk to us about how that what does the rebirth mean? How is it relaunched? What were some of the outcomes?
Yeah, so for Ken, I literally found it just hunting through the blockchain, just trying to find old projects that were launched by a certain date. And when I found his, I basically was able to look up, because there was an old chat room where people were chatting about it, and it was still live, and I could see who the developer was. And I found him through LinkedIn and sent him an email, said, hey, I'm Adam. I think you have something there with Pixel Map. And he said he was going to send it to the spam, but I did mention Pixel Map. And we relaunched it to a lot of success. I won't get into the details about the money for him, but it was a significant amount of money, allowed him to quit his job working for Amazon. And right now it lives on the blockchain and on NFT history as one of the very, very few projects from 2016. So it was a nice one. It changed his life. And I told Ken we're kind of forever locked together as twins in this process. Him that he built it and I relaunched it for him. Has been really, really fun. They made a This America Life podcast about it, which if you're from the States is a big deal. Like my mom heard it, right? My mom doesn't listen to podcasts, but she heard This American Life like on the radio, driving in her car. So that was pretty special for me as well.
So that justified all the work you were doing. It finally made sense for her of like, oh, that's
Absolutely.
what an NFT is.
I'm telling you, it's literally incredible. I wrote a book. My mom didn't even care that I wrote a book, but me being on This American Life and talking to Ira Glass, she's like, oh, you're important now. Yeah, that was a big deal for me.
That's fantastic. So talked about, are there others? Was there an auction involved that one of the first, I guess, NFT auctions in auction world?
So the auction, there have been a couple, and I think that's why last year was really big for NFTs. I think this idea of mainstream users understanding what it is really important. And part of that is getting people and institutions who people trust involved in the process. And so I think, having, Sotheby's auctions, Christie's auctions of punks or curio cards or whatever has been absolutely important to bring this into mainstream, where, of course, people still will FUD on it and say, oh, it's just a picture of a JPEG. But this idea of digital ownership is just beginning to become known in kind of mainstream. And so I think, like the Christie's auction that happened last year, the Sotheby's auctions of the various different historical NFTs and NFTs in general has just been really important to bring it to mainstream attention, where people will see it on CNBC. They may laugh, they may giggle, they see the Beeple sale for $69 million, and suddenly it raises awareness which I think is absolutely critical for blockchain in general, and obviously for NFTs. It's a big deal.
Fantastic. Let's talk about any of your personal hit stories with Grant or Adam. Any ones that you picked up, or any that you want to disclose, or any ones that you missed out on? Love to hear.
Well, I can go for missed out is literally infinite.
Likewise.
It's more like what did I miss out on this week, right? I'll give kind of, well, what would be one simple one that I missed out on was curio cards during the rediscovery of curio cards. It was they predated CryptoPunks by about a month, and a friend of mine DM'd me and was like, "Hey, we just found this one. It's called curio cards. Go check it out." I could have had basically unlimited curio cards at $5 a card, and my brain, well, I read the contract incorrectly. I thought it was 100,000 of each card. Turns out there was a burn mechanism in there that I missed. And I missed out on curio cards at $5 a card, right? Curio cards, if you know anything about them, there were ones trading for 100 plus ETH during the last bull run cycle, and I passed on all of them. So that was kind of one of the many, many big misses over the last year. The other I would say would be Ether Rocks. We found that contract. My friend and I found that contract. There were unlimited Ether Rocks for half an ETH to 2 ETH kind of thing. I could have had Ether Rocks. If I had spent 5 ETH, I'd be probably a deca millionaire right now. I didn't, and so here I am.
Grant, can you top that?
Yeah, I take a more Warren Buffett approach to these things. So, if a picture of a rock, probably not going to buy that. So
don't FUD the NFTs, Grant. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Yeah, so I was scammed for half an ETH once. I aped into an NFT project that turned out to not be real. That's probably my big sob story. So yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, listen. We got let me 1 minute each or 30 seconds each on sort of what you see going forward. Maybe 2 years. Now to 2 years versus 5 years. I know you don't have a lot of time, but if you can just wrap it up.
Sure. I think NFTs have great potential for bridging real world assets to blockchains. You think of maybe real estate. Potentially in 20 years, almost every valuable physical object in the world could have a chip or QR code in it that corresponds to an NFT on Ethereum. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, agreed. Adam? Could be NFTs or could be Ethereum in general.
Well, I think blockchain in general, I love that I have no idea where it's going. And I think nobody on earth really has any idea. The thing that I'm most excited about is kind of during this last bull run is that I just see so many more people moving into the space and building. And with that, like with 1,000 flowers, 99.9% of them will die and will be nothing. But once in a while, we'll catch something which is truly amazing. And I'm super psyched for that next thing to click with a big portion of the population, which is going to move even more people into this space. And that's what I'm really, really excited about.
Fantastic. Okay, so Adam, I know you have a podcast. Where do people follow you if they want to hear more stories?
Just hit me up on Twitter. It's Adam A. McBride on Twitter. Love to connect there. That's the place where I live. So love to see you in the Twitter metaverse.
Great. Grant, how do people follow any of the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at GPHummer.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, folks. Really appreciate you spending time with us and helping us celebrate the 7th anniversary. We have coming up, the next session will be why Ethereum is special. We have some great guests. But before that, we have a few words from other friends and builders in our community. Thank you much.
Thanks, Ken.
Happy Bowtie Friday. I'm Austin Griffith. How did I get into Ethereum? How did I get involved in Ethereum? I learned about smart contracts. I was deep down a rabbit hole on Docker and building infrastructure and code. And then I realized there are these cool smart contracts, these decentralized apps, these apps that you can deploy that are owned by no one and last forever. And programming those and learning about how trust works and how trustless environments or trust fast, minimize environments works really got me excited. And being able to have money at the protocol and build these really cool decentralized tools and games really got me excited. And that's why I got into Ethereum. Any dramatic aha moments exploring Ethereum? Oh, there's so many, especially when working with devs. I like to talk about how a Web2 cron job works. A cron job is a kind of a task that runs periodically. You in Web2, you sort of just set up a server and you have that thing check in, or you set up a cron job on a server and you have it run. But in Web3, it's different. If you want a task to run periodically, guaranteed, you need to set up some other things. Basically, you need to build a smart contract that has the correct incentives and the correct rules. So you write a rule into the smart contract that says this thing can execute once every so often, and whoever executes it, this is the key, gets paid a little bit. So it's about writing rules and incentives to correctly align the behavior that you're going after. And to me, that's a huge aha about what Ethereum is good at, and why someone would use this expensive async database, right? Don't use it like a database. Think about it differently. Okay, last thing. Aside from the merge, what are you excited about in the upcoming year? This is obvious. This is L2, L222, right? We're hitting it. It's happening. People are starting to use L2s. Games, liquidity, things are migrating to these other environments, and we're finding just some really neat new mainstream applications starting to arise. We're going to see GameFi, right? We're going to see probably new types of DeFi, new types of DAO tooling. All these things are going to operate on L2s where it's quicker and faster. Particularly, I'm excited about the governance model that Optimism is setting up and seeing how that operates on L2 and just watching that unfold and watching those iterations happen. So overall, I'm super excited about Ethereum and the next billion users, and I'm particularly interested in bringing in as many developers as possible, making sure they have the education they need, making sure they get the tools they need, and making sure they aren't blocked on building the next big mainstream app that brings in those 100 billion users. So hearts, hearts, hearts. I'm Austin Griffith. Happy Bowtie Friday. Check it out.
Hi everyone, I'm Tegan Klein, the co-founder of Edge and Node, the initial team behind The Graph, the decentralized indexing and query protocol for Web3. In 2011, I learned about Bitcoin, but I kind of dismissed it, put it on the back shelf, went a traditional Wall Street path, and it wasn't until I learned about Ethereum in 2016 that I really saw an opportunity to create a new internet, to create a new financial system. And here we are, fast forward many years in the future, and here we are doing all of that and making that a reality with decentralized finance, with NFTs, with DAOs, and so many more use cases coming forward as we get closer and closer to decentralizing the Web3 stack. There's an opportunity to get involved in Ethereum, the Graph, all of the Web3 ecosystem today that isn't going to be there in 5-10 years. And it's really like early days of Wall Street or early days of the tech boom. That's like the innovation that we're seeing today. And so the time is now to get started.
Hello, everybody. My name is Antonio Martin. I am co-founder of Polygon Hermes and Polygon ID. I started with Ethereum thanks to Jordi Bailina. We met 11 years ago studying an MBA. And then afterwards, we were a group of 8 people that were meeting once per quarter. And Jordi, especially after 2014, 2015, he was always speaking about the options of Ethereum. From there, I started to have some curiosity. I learned, I saw the potential of the smart contracts. And at a certain point with him and David, also coming from the same group, we decided to create Ident3. For me, a very happy memory is when, after the decision of creating Ident3, we went to Toronto. And I have been working for 70 years at the financial system. And then at a certain point, I will go into the theater and I saw all the leaders of the Polygon Foundation dancing a song about mushrooms and snakes. And then I thought, okay, Anthony, where are you heading your future? No? I mean, you are leading a very solid company. for this new adventure. And well, this was just the beginning. Luckily, I think Toronto was one of the best EdCons that I have ever been. I met a lot of interesting people, and it was at the end only another proof that I took the right path, and I'm really happy that I did it. Then what I'm really excited about this year is on the deployment of CKVM. I mean, we in Polygon Hermes, we have been working on this for the last 2 years, very hard, and now we will start to present that in Paris next week, and during the next months we should be able to deploy the testnet and the mainnet. And I think that products like this one that are able to provide very good solutions for payments or for remittances, they could be great to bring the next billion users to Ethereum. And I think that they are not going to come from developed countries. They will come from countries where there is a lack of infrastructure, where there is financial repression. Then obviously we need to create a better user interface. But I think that the south part of the world will be the one taking the lead on the number of users on top of Ethereum. With this, well, happy birthday, Ethereum, on your 7th year, and looking forward to meet again.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this, the third and last panel of our Ethereum at 7 event. I hope you guys have been enjoying the program so far, and we're going to pick up, I think, where we just left off with the history of Ethereum and take a look at it, where it is today and its future. Just a quick word to myself. My name is Tom Lyons, and I work at the EA in various communications and thought leadership capacities, and among other things, as the author of our recent business readiness report. And in that report, we tried to take a good look at where is Ethereum as a business platform. So where is it in terms of what you can do with it and what you can actually build with it. So the world of Ethereum beyond DeFi, beyond fintech use cases, beyond speculation. And in this panel, we're really glad to have two recognized builders who are going to talk about these themes. We've had some changes to the panel, I'm afraid, at the last minute. So Michael Egoroff couldn't make it. He has a situation came up, and Tegan Klein also couldn't make it, but we're happy to have Kyle Rojas from EdgeNode as well. And of course, Karen Scarborough is here as well. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the panel.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh yeah, great that you guys could make it. So since we've had some changes, why don't we start off with each of you introducing yourselves. Karen, we know each other, but I'll start with you.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me. I am Karen Scarborough. I work for BP in their Digital Science and Engineering Group, which is more generically known as our innovation group. And I focus on blockchain and cryptography for the team. I came to BP about 4 years ago after having worked at Consensus as a developer with smart contracts at the time of one of the first token booms. So I'm excited to be able to take those learnings to enterprise and continue work on evaluating Ethereum and readiness in that domain.
Great. Kyle?
Yeah, so I oversee BDM partnerships for EdgeNode, working on the graph ecosystem in general. I started out my career, I was 12 years Air Force doing a ton of different stuff. I was at Goldman Sachs for a little under 7 years, and I hung up my tie to finally live the good life, and life is good.
Okay, great. So I think I'd like to start the conversation kind of in a broad way with a pretty open-ended question. But we just heard about the history of Ethereum and a little bit of NFT archaeology, which I didn't know was a thing. We've been working here at the EEA to sort of take a look at where Ethereum is as a business platform. So that's my first question to you. The title of our panel is "What Makes Ethereum Special?" So Karen, I'll start with you. What makes Ethereum special? Where is our ecosystem now in terms of a business-oriented building platform?
Right. Well, I think it's appropriate to look at all blockchain and cryptocurrency. It's a nascent innovation that's still growing and very much still developing. And looking at it through that lens, being pragmatic about where it is now and where it's going, I think there's 3 pillars really that are very advantageous in Ethereum. So One is the technology development of the protocol itself, and then systems built on top of it. I think that if you look at the Ethereum Foundation and all the work that they've done iterating over the past 7 years, they've proven themselves in being able to iterate on things and make them better. And they've also, as a organization, simplified some things that they made previously complex. And you can see that in the decisions they've made on, for example, sharding and some other components within how they imagine scaling Ethereum. So technology in general and the approach to how teams are scaling, and not only the Ethereum Foundation has to work on it, but all those working on the optimistic and zero knowledge rollups, which are going to scale Ethereum as well, are very encouraging. So you're not reliant on one particular group to make Ethereum work. It's several in the ecosystem. And then beyond that, it's the developers that can actually build applications on top of it. So obviously, by far, the largest ecosystem of developers, not only just in the public domain, but also in private blockchains with Ethereum. Enterprises are familiar with being able to choose to run a variation of Ethereum, whether it's quorum or proof of authority in private blockchains as well. So there's a lot of resources there. And then lastly, the users themselves. If you do get the opportunity to test a public network application, Ethereum has the largest amount of users to give you feedback on the reception of that application and how it's taken in, what you should do next, all those sorts of questions. So those three things make Ethereum very strong for different reasons.
Thanks. Kyle, I'll pass the same question over to you.
Yeah, hard to top that answer. And I totally agree with Karen, and it's just absolutely a community, right? You can't simply code a community of millions of users around the world. You can't buy a massive amount of developers that are emotionally incentivized, not just financially incentivized, to want to build in this space. And that's what's happening on Ethereum. And a majority of the incredibly intelligent builders from all around the world are looking at the entire layer 1, layer 2 sidechain space, and they're choosing to build on and help scale Ethereum in large ways, from the optimistic rollup space to the ZK space, which is super exciting. So many other applications of the technology, you just can't replicate that. And that's what makes it special. And with regards to where it is as a business platform, it's just in such very, very early days. And that's exciting, right? Traditional businesses are really just waking up to the potential of building within the Ethereum ecosystem in general. And most of us in the space are actually speaking with traditional companies, developing real world use cases, a very exciting ones in many cases. And we'll hopefully be making a lot of that public in the near future. But just again, it's still very, very early days.
Okay, thanks a lot. So Kyle, you joined last minute and we haven't met, but for some reason or other, you've anticipated my next question anyway. So I'd like to go over that. You know, a lot of the things we're doing at the EEA and you just said you guys are doing is, you know, businesses are looking at it. It's gone kind of mainstream on the consumer side. People are interested in this space, but they're not quite sure what it is. You know, in these conversations you have, and Kyle, I'll go to you first here. How do you explain to people coming in, why bother with blockchain? Why bother with the Web3 approach or decentralized business models? You know, and what makes that different? Because I think these conversations can be important, but also not necessarily so easy, right?
Yeah, I'd take that a couple different ways. The first is why bother? And you'd bother because there are millions of people interacting and the growth rate is exponential. And so if you want to pay attention to trends, this is a parabolically increasing adoption trend across many verticals. Started with kind of finance and monetary application. It went to compute with Ethereum, and now it's spreading across so many different verticals, with the previous panel talking about NFT applications and potentially real estate transactions. I see it happening for legal transactions on smart contracts, investment banking transactions, anything with can be intermediated to code. So that's how I explain it. It's just the next evolution of the internet. And if somebody's not going to pay attention, if they're not going to adapt, they're going to be left on the side of the road without a vehicle to drive in, with the rest of the world moving forward at light speed.
Karen, because I know you do a lot of evangelizing within your company and in the community, and so you've had a lot of these conversations.
Right.
You know, where are you with them today?
Well, I think the best way to approach a lot of crypto and Ethereum in general is being very pragmatic on where it is and then also where it could go. So it'd be remiss not to highlight that there's regulatory clarity that's needed. Privacy is certainly required, and those are two very big components that enterprises need to move forward in a significant way. But you'd also be lacking to say that those two things aren't progressing as well. If you look at a variety of different places around the world, there's incremental clarity coming about. And then on the privacy side, there are several teams working on that element as well. And we've already mentioned scalability. So I think the best position to take it as Ethereum is certainly at a point where it's worth testing what you can, because it certainly provides the environment to do that. And there's a couple of different ways that I think enterprises can get involved with that. Since it is retail at the time, any business that touches retail applications and needs an element of customer loyalty, there's opportunities there. There are great examples of what community funding and voting can do through DAOs and things like quadratic funding and Gitcoin. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that enterprises need to jump into immediately decentralized finance in a high-risk environment. There's lots of other ways to manage getting into the ecosystem and starting to learn information, which would be valuable for the next step.
All right. So I'm, listening to you guys kind of thinking through this stuff. I'd like to get maybe a little bit deeper into Kyle, you both touched on use cases. So, we're seeing the rise of with the success of consumer DeFi, with the success of collectible NFTs, we've seen a couple of pretty large scale decentralized business models that work, right? This is a pretty good example. But looking past that to more traditional businesses, what really blockchain-y use cases, Ethereum use cases do you like? Where do you think people are going to really profit from building on this kind of technology and with these kind of decentralized approaches? Kyle, you want to start?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that decentralized finance is eating a lot of the AUM of traditional finance. When you look about from 20 billion to 200 billion from the bear to bull run up in AUM or TVL, then you look at other exciting things happening, which is, you could say art, but I'm more excited about the gaming industry. You think of how big the gaming industry is. You think of how big esports is, how it's kind of towering over some of the largest sports franchises and sports verticals in the world. And that's for every person of any age with access to a computer to be able to participate, and having that built on Web3 technologies with the associated values of kind of the power and decision making and ownership, which you don't have in traditional Web2 companies. And then you think of everything from again, real estate and traditional businesses and those. But another thing I'm super excited about, mostly because I'm in the digital infrastructure space, is the disruption of traditional Web2 technologies and infrastructures. So you think of any big Web2 company, Amazon for e-commerce, that will be disrupted, is being disrupted. Google for data, that is being disrupted by the graph and other technologies. And anything you think in general, it's going to be rebuilt, it's going to be disrupted, and I'm super excited what's going to happen over the next 3, 5, 10 years. I think it's just a matter of time.
Thanks. Karen, favorite use cases?
Right. I try to point out some things that Ethereum and crypto is doing that other categories of technology can't do. So for example, we've already touched on DeFi, but to replicate a decentralized exchange would be very difficult with existing technologies and infrastructure. And so the ability to aggregate a disparate market with incentives is something that we haven't seen other technologies be able to do. So it's very exciting for an enterprise to look at what do we do and how can we correlate incentive structures to perhaps make a decentralized way of doing things in the future. And so at this point, a lot of that discussion is very theoretical and abstract, but if certain technological breakthroughs and clarity comes through, then it gets all the more exciting. But more generally, I think paying attention to what's happening in decentralized finance makes a lot of sense, and how to start understanding, assessing the risks of those systems. I know the Stanford blockchain groups have done some great analysis of the larger DeFi protocols as systems and how controls could potentially be put in place to optimize them. So those are great resources to look at. And then also extending from DeFi, like I mentioned, customer loyalty. How does this allow you to potentially communicate with customers that you're trying to reach differently than other advertising mechanisms that you'd be interested in facilitating? So there's certainly more than that as far as infrastructure goes. Things like how could you use a system like sign-on with Ethereum to allow silos to communicate with each other across your business or across your customer channels. So lots of different things that require a bit more under the hood. I don't think there's that one-to-one plug and play use case, but that's kind of what it's exciting about it as well. As the market changes, as the technology changes, you can look at new things to find where that next hit of value is coming from.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, what you just brought up at the end about the plug and play, that reminds me a bit. In our report, we kind of came to sort of a conclusion that the Ethereum ecosystem has come a long way. It's quite mature, and all the pieces are there in place to really start solving some large scale business problems. But these pieces don't really fit together quite yet, right? Would you agree? And maybe if I'm kind of getting to the question of when you're talking to people, what are the risks and the blockers, and what is somebody going to find coming into the space if they want to build something? Karen, you want to start that one?
That's a great question. And before I even got into digital at all, I was actually in supply chain. So I'm used to running Kaizens and all sorts of system analysis and everything. And I think the very best thing you can do as a business is get somebody who knows a process and somebody who knows how blockchain works in the same room, and let them talk to each other and understand how things are currently running and versus how they could run with blockchain. And those two parties talking to each other will come up with the best solution for you, as opposed to letting the blockchain person map it out or the supply chain person tell you what they need. Because you really need both in the room to make the best, most practical, optimized system and come up with a simple MVP. I think sometimes innovation groups forget that we don't have to solve all the world's problems at first, but test that one thing that gets you enough information to decide what to do next before you move on. And you've already created a lot of value in doing that. So that's a good approach to take, is getting all the right people in the right room and choosing the minimum you need to do to learn more and decide what to do next.
Okay, thanks. Kyle, over to you. Risks, scary stuff, blockers.
So it seemed like the question was, how do you get involved and how do you learn? Or
So I was just saying, when people are coming in, we're saying the ecosystem's matured, where a lot of the pieces are in place to start building some large scale solutions, but they don't necessarily fit together really well.
Sure.
And people don't really understand. So when you're having these conversations, what are the blockers, things people should be worried about, or what the risks are?
Yeah, the risks are real, right? And there's not only reputation risk of transitioning from Web 2 to Web 3 or traditional to decentralized finance. And so that's more of an internal decision on their part. What you can do is learn from the top to bottom. And that means reaching out to you folks, right, at the EEA, reaching out to the Ethereum Foundation. There's a ton of great educational content on the Ethereum Foundation. Everyone should make their way through that. They should reach out to those folks, see what the use cases are, see what the case studies are, see how people are thinking about it legally, operationally, and financially. And then you start reaching out to the protocols, like the teams that I'm on and other folks, to understand how other businesses are doing it, and just use the case studies, use the learning experiences, so you don't have to go pave a road that's already there somewhere else and just walk down the road somebody else has already taken. So just reach out to all of us. We are more than happy to red pill any organization, any company, any country, and just explain why we're so passionate about this, why most of us are giving up incredible jobs to come work harder than we ever have in our lives. So reach out on Twitter, on Telegram, and Discords, anything you can, and even email on sites. We're all here to help, and we're excited to bring on the next billion users to this ecosystem.
Great, thanks. All right, guys, we're coming towards the end. I got two, maybe two last questions for each of you. First of all, I think it's interesting to people to get a sense of, you know, behind the scenes what's going on. I really, Kyle, I'd be quite interested to know a bit about Edge and Node and the graph and what you guys are up to. And then Karen, I want to talk a little bit about what you do at BP.
Sure. So what's fun about the graph ecosystem is we're rebuilding the way information is not only indexed and served to users, but we're rebuilding the incentive structure and taking away just what Web3 is important about it in general is taking away the power of decision making and ownership from a few wealthy people behind closed doors and ironing that out across everyone, because Facebook or Meta would look very different today if half the world's population that actually uses it had a say in how it was built out. So that's the importance of Web3 in general. It's and at the graph, we're decentralizing the indexing and query layer to where there's more robustness, there's more anti-fragility, and it allows the world to truly be called anti-fragile because it's not a small group behind closed doors that can shut something down, cut off your website that's giving you quality of life or whatever. It's just a really exciting time for this space. And I'd say that's only one technological infrastructure layer. There are many others that are coming to fruition over the next few quarters, not years, where in 2017-18, they were white papers. A couple years later, they were MVPs. Now they are true protocols in operation, operating at scale. And in the next few quarters, we'll be going true Web3 plumbing across 40, 50 to 80 ecosystems in general. So it's a really exciting time for the space.
Yeah, it does sound very exciting indeed. Karen, a little bit behind the scenes, what you guys are up to at BP?
Sure. Well, people are welcome to reference Ernst & Young's Blockchain Summit. I gave a talk there on a zero knowledge proof that we used in coordination with Quadratic Funding to create an application there. And so overall, we're very keen on zero knowledge as it's applied to scalability and hopefully eventually privacy in the future. I think that term in general, zero knowledge, has absolutely the potential to be on the radar of everyone, just like blockchain has in the future, in the coming years. And things like the development of, I've already seen some people mention zk-EVM and those announcements. And for those that are not familiar with what's happening in that category, you probably won't see it in the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times, but it is absolutely one of the most exciting technical developments of the category right now. The work that developers are doing to put the entire virtual machine of Ethereum into a zero knowledge system so that it runs faster through proving systems, which is a whole new paradigm for computation, is something that I could see even being taken outside of Ethereum and crypto and used in other places. So those underlying layers towards what gets things towards being hyper usable in the future are what we're excited about.
Okay, guys. So as far as I can see, we've reached our time. I'd like to thank the both of you very much for taking the time to come here today. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Kyle. And if I can maybe leave us with one last thought, I'd like to echo what Kyle said. If you're coming into this space, just ask questions. Almost everybody, I've been here in this space for about 7 years, and no matter what part of it you're in, everyone is always keen on answering questions, on explaining, on getting up to speed. Come to the EEA. We have a lot of resources. The Ethereum Foundation has a lot of resources. And a service provider, a developing shop, and wherever you get your toehold, just start asking questions. And I think a lot of very exciting things are happening, and it's a great time to if you're a business to come into this space. With that, I'd like to say thanks a lot, and I'll turn it over to the team.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.